A reading from John's Gospel, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
At the end of time, billions of people were scattered on a great plain before God's throne. Most shrank back from the brilliant light before them, but some groups near the front talked heatedly, not with cringing shame, but more with belligerence. Can God judge us? How can he know about suffering? Snapped a young Syrian. He removes his shirt to reveal a bullet-scarred back. In Aleppo, we endured terror, shootings and torture. In another group, an aged African woman pulls a crumpled, tear-stained photograph from her pocket. "What about this?" she demanded. "This is my precious child, and I haven't seen her since the day she was stolen away from me for no crime but being black." In another crowd, a pregnant schoolgirl with sullen eyes. "Why should I suffer?" she murmured. "It wasn't my fault." Far out, across the plain, there were hundreds of such groups of people, and each had a complaint against God for the evil and suffering in this world. How lucky God was to live in heaven where all was sweetness and light, where there was no weeping or fear or hunger or hatred. What did God know of all that people had been forced to endure in this world? For God leads a pretty sheltered life, they said. So, each of these groups sent forth their leader, chosen because they had suffered the most. A Jew, a person from Hiroshima, a drowned refugee, a thalidomide child, and in the centre of the plain they consulted with each other. At last they were ready to present their case, and it was rather clever, they thought. Before God could be qualified to be their judge, he must endure what they had endured. Their decision was that God should be sentenced to live on earth as a human being. Let him be born into a hated race, they said. Let the legitimacy of his birth be doubted. Give him a work so difficult that even his family will think him out of his mind when he tries to do it. Let him be betrayed by his closest friends. Let him face false charges, be tried by a prejudiced jury and convicted by a cowardly judge. Let him be tortured. And at the last, let him see what it means to be terribly alone. Then let him die. Let him die so that there can be no doubt he's died. Let there be a great host of witnesses to verify it. As each leader announced his or her portion of the sentence, loud murmurs of approval went up amongst the people there. And when the last had finished pronouncing sentence, there was a long silence. No one uttered another word. No one moved. There before them stood Jesus, scars on his hands and on his feet. And suddenly all knew that God had already served his sentence. This is the truth we proclaim as Christians. God is not distant. God is not uncaring. God is not making a list and checking it twice, trying to work out who's naughty or nice. No, God is with us. That is the claim of Christmas. Emmanuel, literally, God with us, is of course one of the names the Bible gives to Jesus. In Jesus, God has lived this life and faced all those things that we heard in that imaginary story. Poverty, the loss of loved ones, being a refugee, suffering rejection, being the victim of injustice, being tortured and executed. This is the God we Christians believe in. This is the baby born in a stable at Bethlehem. This is the man crucified and then raised on the third day, who's been through death and out the other side. This is the God who promises to be with us always, even to the end of the age. And in Advent, we talk about hope. We talk about making space for Jesus as we get ready for Christmas. We talk about a God who is worth making space for, worth waiting for, and worth following. The only God who can truly identify with us as we really are. The only God who promises to be with us, just a prayer away, just a breath away, who is with us in our joys and in our sorrows. The God we can truly get to know if we just give him the space to come in. Of course, there are many counterfeit gods out there, aren't there? Money, possessions, sex, relationships, the escape to alcohol and drugs. There are so many worldviews which elevate good things, things which God has created, to the place where only God truly belongs. When life is challenging, it's often to these counterfeit gods that we look for comfort. Much of the last 2 years has seen many people's worlds just turned upside down by COVID, by the variants themselves, or by the many consequences of lockdowns and isolation and so on. Some people I know have coped very well. Perhaps some personality types are more suited to it than others, but many, a great many, have searched for solace in places where it just can't be found. You see, if we're really looking for hope rather than just to dull the pain, and when I say hope, I mean real life, dirty hands, right here with us in the real world kind of hope. I mean hope which is beyond our current circumstances. Hope which is for both this world and for the next. If we're really, really looking for hope, there is only one place that we can find it. And it lies in a manger behind the door of the Bethlehem stable. It hangs on a cross at Calvary. So halfway through Advent, as we now are, halfway on our journey to Christmas, maybe it's a good time to ask ourselves some searching questions. The kind of questions which lead us towards a real and lasting hope. A real and lasting hope in the one who was born to us 2,000 years ago, who died and rose again, and who will come again one day to make all things new. Do you tend towards those counterfeit gods, those things which just flatter to deceive? Or do we recognise in Jesus, the one who's lived this life, the only true ground for hope and comfort? Are we living out the truth of his gospel, that the kingdom will come in part in us and through us? Are our lives pictures of gratitude for all he has done for us? And do we even begin to comprehend the depths of God's love for us all, for everyone? It's a depth of love which underlies the story I began with and the accusations thrown by the crowd at God. Let him be born into a hated race. Let the legitimacy of his birth be doubted. Give him a work so difficult that even his family will think him out of his mind when he tries to do it. Let him be betrayed by his closest friends. Let him face false charges, be tried by a prejudiced jury and convicted by a cowardly judge. Let him be tortured. And at the last, let him see what it means to be terribly alone. Then let him die so that there can be no doubt he died. Let there be a great host of witnesses to verify it. This is our God, Emmanuel, God with us. This is the heart of Christmas and the heart of our faith. This is where we find our hope and where we find peace for now and for the future. This is the truth which underpins our lives as followers of Jesus. So may the peace of Emmanuel, God with us, be with you now, and may it be with you always.